What happens if you're going to put your hair up? What?
Well, no, it's just the thing is that if you're going to put your hair up and you can't actually have it to show it off, you're going to you have to be extra as fuck. Like, that's just all it is. That if your hair is going to be up, it's got to be extra.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's like in a weird little rat's tail knot in the back of your head.
So if you do like a top bun, everybody's got to be top. Like,
look, I don't want no scrunchies.
I got you.
Top bun, top bitch.
So a scrunchie is a hair thing with material excess. So like normally it just be a black. What's happening? Fuck y'all.
Let's just say you got that Shang from Mulan vibe going on. You're not old.
1. What's up, everybody? Artists in Debt podcast. Just fresh off the Coastal Soul Poetry Night at Proletariat Gallery out in Galveston, Texas.
What did you just say?
I almost said Houston.
Did you say Proletariat Galleria?
Proletariat Galleria, Texas. Hey, the Galleria in Houston could have its own fucking
There's a
city
reason
limits.
we do this prior, mostly.
In the studio today, we got a fantastic guest. We got Xach Blunt.
Yo, what's up?
The poetry. Actually, you know, I think you're one of the first poets I heard. I think after Lord Abraham, I think I saw y'all two first.
Wow.
So from
really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, totally, man. Like you're one of the first ones I remember from the Coastal Soul group.
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
man.
You're welcome, man.
Look at you now.
Yeah, he was. Xach was the feature tonight for Poetry Night, and just coming off the 2-year anniversary last session,
man.
where we had we had Ryan McMaster Ryder.
Yeah.
I think his Instagram name is super cool.
It's funny, man. If you don't mind me jumping in,
Yeah, go for
say
it.
something about Ryan real quick. You know, whenever I first started getting into poetry, which is probably like 3 years ago, about 2.5, 3 years ago, Ryan was one of the first poets that I saw. You know what I mean? And to see his stride and see how he's grown since then is remarkable. So yeah.
What's really cool, him when he was on the show, is talking about just his, kind of rising up through his like struggle with confidence and and just things he went through in life, and just how because even if first coming off when you first meet him, you might think you might be a little awkward or something, but then what actually was a great surprise for me is he went up and just his poetry is like so powerful.
Yeah.
Like it makes time slow down almost. Like you sit and listen,
That's a really good way to put it.
Yeah, it's powerful.
He's very deliberate in how he delivers his poems, which is really interesting to me. I often watch him grow in terms of just how he delivers his poem and work on stage. Right, I feel like confidence is something that we never stop working through. You know what I mean? Like earlier today, I was like, yeah, I'm about to fucking kill this feature set. And then, I chopped it up with one of my friends, right? About different art shit, right? And I was like, fuck, maybe I'm really trash. You know what I mean? And so, is this never ending battle of am I good enough to be on these stages, And so it's constantly working through, even for those of us who are seemingly charismatic, and even more so for those people like Ryan who may not demand the presence of people as much. And I think it's dope that he perseveres anyway.
Absolutely.
It's always great to see in a poet. It's always great to see in an artist in general.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's very raw. It's very natural. He does. It's very cool. It was great having him on the show. For everyone listening, there was a piece he spit, but we weren't able to show it for copyright reasons.
He put out this piece and then he sent back. He was like, "Hey, I might publish that later. Take it out of the podcast." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm
wow.
I just get it." But I get it. Like that. That's a thing, and that's okay. And I think one of your biggest things, Devlin, is respecting artists and their space, especially as you provide a space. And we talk about other spaces that are being provided for these same artists. That's to be expected. If you want to hear it, you just need to go follow him and check it out. Anyways,
that's real.
How about that?
Absolutely. Oh, also, I forgot to introduce. Actually, for the first time with us, we have. my wonderful partner in crime over here, Stephanie Bass. She's in the background a couple times. You want to say what's up? She officially has her own microphone this time.
Hey y'all.
There, yeah.
Did I hear?
Life is sweet.
Did I hear Bass?
Yeah.
As in
the fish. Yes.
As in, like you're related to Dominique Bass.
That's my
Dominique's
sister.
sister.
That is totally my sister.
Bruh, that's so fucking cool.
Mind blown.
You know, Dominique's one of my favorite people on the island. Shout out to Dominique.
She's one of my favorite people too.
That's a sibling obligation.
No, Dom is fucking perfect. So yeah.
She's dope.
Oh, and back with us
shout out.
The always here for the Coast of Soul episode, Emily Lopez.
Oh yeah,
calls. Yeah. Oh yeah, there you are.
I was twitching or something like you said it, and I was like.
You know, you can probably pull in that microphone a little bit.
Look, y'all took a whole piece and said it was fine, and like no joke. Is my eye twitching?
No.
Yeah. Okay. Shout out to the viewers. Can you see her eye twitching?
I swear to God.
One or two.
I can hear that. I can actually. You know what? I can hear your eye twitching. It's picking up in the microphone. You better figure that out.
You're an asshole.
Your eyelash is
fuck that
side of it.
Okay.
But not your actual eye.
We're going to move on from that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
For your introduction. Thank you, Xach, for being here. Steph, for being here. I'm always trying to hear your sultry ass voice.
Oh, thank you.
I'm about it.
So Xach, other than, so you said that, Ryan was one of the first ones you might have heard. So what got you into poetry originally? If you can remember.
If I can go all the way back, that would be great. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Oh.
Let me go all the way back.
It was a full story. We got none but time.
Do it.
Bet. I'm gonna start from the origins. This is the origin story of Xach Blunt and his artistry, right? When I was probably like 7 or 8, right? Like my mom was always super into arts and crafts, and every summer when we didn't have school, she would like have us. I'm one of 5 children, right? So she would have us sit down and do arts and crafts, be it drawing, be it painting with like watercolors or whatever, like just artsy shit. We'd be doing it in the house, and it's really funny because like everyone would finish their crafts and show my mom their crafts. And, my brothers and sisters would show my mom the crafts. They would be like, hey, Mom, look what I did. She'd be like, oh, that's great. Hey, Mom, look what I did. Oh, that's wonderful. And when I get up and show them, hey, Mom, look what I did. She's like, oh, you need to fix this part's wrong.
And I love her.
This shit's messed up.
Sounds so right.
And, like, it was, like, super, like, disheartening for me, right? And
that was a tactic, right?
Right? So, like, there's this one time where I was like, okay, I'm sitting down, I'm drawing this shit, and it's perfect. It's gonna be right? She's gonna be impressed, And I take it to her, and seemingly so, from my point of view, she was not impressed. She's like, same shit. Like, have me fix this, this, and this. And I broke down. I vividly remember this. I was in the kitchen, right? She was cooking, and I broke down. I'm like, Mom, you tell everyone else their shit's great. And I say shit. I was like 12. I was younger than I was like 8, right? Maybe. So she's like, I'm like, you tell everyone else that their paintings are good. You don't tell me mine's good. You only give me work to do. You only tell me to go back and fix it. And I'm in tears, I'm like really disheartened. And she tells me one of the most profound things I've ever heard as an artist. She's like, Xach, I don't tell you this because you're the worst, because that's how I felt. She tells me this. She said she tells me this because I see the most potential in you. I think you are the best. I think that your gifts can go beyond any of your other siblings. And I thought that was so empowering for me as an artist. That was like the awakening for me as an artist, right?
And that's hard for moms. Like, that's like we'll push you before we tell you, and that seems like what she did. Like,
yeah.
She's not going to just give it to you so everybody else can hear and know. Like, it's not easy as a mother, I can say, to be like, this is you, let me tell you. This is how you're going to hone in. And I've been keeping it from you a little bit, hoping you notice, but it's there. That's why. Yeah. You need that hardness.
You do. You need, because the world's not going to filter it for you, Yeah. So, like, I'm very grateful for her to be, like, the first person and, like, my hardest critic. And, like, all of my mentors since then have been very harsh critics of my work. and it's necessary to push me to be the artist that I am today, right? So that was a very pivotal moment for me. That's when I decided, like, in my mind, that I was consciously aware of the fact that I'm an artist. Yeah. And so, like, I moved through the world at that point as an artist. And after that, right, so it was drawing, it was painting. It wasn't really, I was, like,
yeah, because I've seen your painting, and, like, you do amazing art. Like, you're on so many spectrums, and I feel like a lot of people don't see that necessarily. Everybody thinks of you as spoken word artist, but in actuality, you're filtrating.
I'm absolutely a creative.
So many different things.
Absolutely, thank you. I'm glad you noticed.
No, I've seen that shit.
Yeah, and so it was like that idea of like this is where I come from as an artist, right? So I was drawing a lot and really into that. There's a point where I stepped into music. Like, I feel like at the age of like 10, we kind of started having an awakening of our own musical taste, and like, this is a song I like that's sort of separate than the songs that you've listened to, because that's what your fucking parents listen to, you know? And so like, I got into like rap, and like I started rapping, and like that's when I started working with words. I was actually a part of this like gospel rap group, which is really funny.
That's amazing though. Like,
and people don't know I'm from New Orleans. Like, I feel like people know, but not like everybody, right?
Right.
I'm from New Orleans, so that's where I was at. So I was influenced by like, it's predominantly black. So I'm influenced by like Patti LaBelle, like Kirk Franklin, like. At the time it was Nas. Nas was a huge influence for me, right? And so like I started doing like Nas covers in the church, right? It was wild. And it was like the happy Nas songs though. Like, I Know You Can and shit. You know what I mean? Like the clean ones. And then like I ended up finding these dope ass people who were lyricists as well, and we started to vibe together, and we made songs. We made like complete original songs. We had a whole group. We were doing really dope shit. And then Hurricane Katrina happened. Yeah, in 2005, right? And so that destroyed everything, right? That kind of broke up the group. We all went to our separate ways because, you know, like, wherever the destination took us. I know one of our partners, like, who was like a mentor for me at the time, went to LA. Another one went to Atlanta. A couple of us came to Houston area. I actually came to Galveston after Hurricane Katrina, and I lived out here for 3 months.
Why Galveston?
Interesting enough, it was just like, it's fate. It's fate, you know. Like, I went to Dallas to evacuate from the storm, and that's where my aunt lives, and lived. She lived in Galveston, so we evacuated there. My oldest sister's boyfriend at the time evacuated him and his family evacuated to Galveston. We knew them better than we knew our aunt, so it was a deciding point to where it's like, do we want to be with people we know, or do we want to be with like quote unquote family, right? And so we decided we want to be comfortable. We want to be around people we know. So we decided to come down here to keep each other company, to be in good graces. And so that's what we did. And Galveston was really dope in a lot of ways that is very similar to New Orleans. Like, the architecture is very similar.
I've grown up in both places.
The vibes are very similar. It's a really cool place to be. And so it was really great to be down here and enjoy those vibes. And honestly, like, because New Orleans was so black, like, I wasn't exposed to like Hispanic people and Latino culture until I came to Texas, which is like weird, right? I was like, it's culture
because
shock.
It's so intertwined with also Texan culture, like it runs in the same, so you get a bunch of both.
Yeah,
heavily.
Lots of Tex-Mex.
And then you come to Galveston, which has
everything. Yo, it's wild.
You're Tex-Mex, you're Hispanic, you're black culture, you're everything. Like, it's
honestly really funny because
but
you
it's
would
so
think
open
that everything would go to Houston, but Galveston ends up being sort of a bigger mixing pot than people would normally expect.
Exactly. And I feel like I can get on a whole nother topic about how I think like Galveston's like a mini Houston.
Especially with all the
save it for your points,
all the other kids that come down here from like other countries too to work. Like, it's like very, very diverse if you really dig.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. And so like that was the move. And so I came down here and I took a hiatus from like writing, from rhyming, from all of that stuff for a little bit because I was like suffering from depression and like just like separating from home and grieving from all of that stuff, you know? And I started to find myself. What happened was Rita hit, here in Galveston, and so my mom was very unsafe in Galveston, so we moved up to Friendswood area, which if you don't know, it's an in between Houston and Galveston, right? And so that's where we settled, and we lived there for a while. It's very white place to be for a nigga from New Orleans, and so I had to really adjust myself and really adapt to fit in with that environment, and I feel like I did just fine. I survived just fine, and with that, I picked up really great skills. I got into really more into visual art. I still always rapped, right? But I really got into more visual art. Started painting, right? Started picking up mixed media, picking up oil paints, and doing really dope shit like that. And had a really good mentor and teacher in high school, and did great shit there and great friendships that helped me curate my artistry.
Yeah,
and
absolutely, it's necessary.
Yeah, it was just really dope to grow in that in those different aspects of like visual art, and then you're still writing songs, right? And what happened was like after high school, right? I'm working my bullshit 9-to-5 job and shit, still creating songs, still doing all of this stuff, dabbling with spoken word poetry in between this, not really knowing that it's an actual genre. And my friend's birthday happened, and she's like, hey, let's go to Avant Garden. It's a spot in Houston that we always went to. And so I'm like, shout out Avant, man. And so I'm like, yeah, let's go there. It's your birthday. Let's fucking do it. So I'm like, I'll meet y'all there after work. And you know what I mean? I get off work late. So I'm like, I'll catch y'all when I'm done. Cool. We plan to meet up. I go to Avant. I go outside on the patio where we're normally hanging out at, and none of them are there outside on the fucking patio. I'm like, what the fuck is this? But what was there was people doing poetry. People literally just spitting these poems, no music, no sound, just their fucking voices and their words and stops and affirmation. It was the coolest shit, yo. It was absolutely the most beautiful shit to strip music from words and see it stand on its own and see it be beautiful and empowering. And like, I'm like, yo, where y'all at? I send a text like, yo, where y'all at? They're doing poetry out here. And they're like, we're inside. And I'm like, come outside. And they're like, no. And I'm like, but it was her birthday. So I'm like, I can't even really argue with that. I went and celebrated the birthday. And the next week I came back out, and I had never stopped going to poetry ever since then.
That's amazing.
So that was like my introduction to like getting into like spoken word poetry, and that's when I fell in love with it, yo.
Absolutely. And shout out to Right About Now, Wednesday meetups of Right Avant Garden.
Absolutely. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Right About Now, yo. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Amir Safi, Christopher Diaz, RJ Wright, Anna Christina. I'm missing names, but yo, shout out all those people. Ebony Stewart, like the people who made me feel welcome and made me feel like I had a home to come to. That's just fire. I think poetry is like, in a lot of sense, very different than a lot of sub scenes in Houston.
Yeah.
Like you have the different music scenes in Houston, you have the various art scenes in Houston, and there's sort of like this pretentious like contesting thing. Whereas like I felt like poetry's always been super genuine, super hospitable, and like that's the shit I fuck with, yo.
Exactly.
Above all.
Well, and I actually think there's too much of that out in
a lot of the art scenes where it's too judgmental, and people aren't like, oh, you're not really doing this because you don't uphold these standards, like especially like in the metal scene, like the one I'm in with the band I play in.
Okay.
Like in that metal scene, like the metal and the punk scene, man, like it's fun. I love the music, but actually, shout out Artyom. He's on the show a lot. My roommate Artie. But we talk about this in the scene all the time. Like it's very judgmental, and some people are always like, well, you're not metal enough, and you're doing this, and
it's wild,
this
yo.
is that, this, or like even for stuff people wear. Like I remember, there's this band called Volumes, and like one of the singers, bro, like he straight rocks the Go Yard when he's on there on stage, and he's got a little Gucci bag. For all I don't know, it's a Go Yard. It's basically a satchel. That's the term for it.
That's cute.
Yeah,
that's cute.
I think it's funny. I think it's so funny. I remember the first time I heard that term, I was like, the Go Yard? And I was like, what's it? I was like, Go Yard. But like he's rocking like this like Gucci satchel, but he's out there doing his thing. He's an awesome vocalist, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's just like into fashion, like if you look at his page, like he's just into fashion. That's just what he does.
Yeah.
But I think even though people are still like that, I feel, I remember how it was in, 2007, 2006, where it's just like, if you're doing this, you look like shit,
Yeah.
I mean? But nowadays, it's like, everything's in style.
There's like a facet for everything,
Yeah, like there's, and what's cool is, and touching with that, I like what you said about how, especially because you paint, you have all these different mediums that you do. I feel like if someone wants to be an artist and they take their artistry seriously, I think they should dabble in different mediums.
Yeah, just totally explore.
But yeah, because you learn things in those that you can bring back to your own.
Absolutely.
And that's why it's good to do different stuff too, because if you do the same thing too much, you can get too saturated.
Yeah.
And you need to
just complacent and not
just
even
jump around. Yeah, because when you look at things from different angles, because if you don't look at things from different angles and get just a little bit of everything, you're not really gonna be the best you can be in that situation. So that's really cool that you said that.
I mean, like, in response to that, you talk a lot, Xach, about being like, this jovial human. I love when you use that word because I feel like it embraces a lot of what you bring to the table, especially in group settings. You kind of just have this energy and light about you, but have you always had that? Like, I really want to know. That's one of my biggest questions I've been thinking about. Or is it something you're just channeling into, considering the community that's embraced you so much?
No, it's not something I always had, right?
Okay.
I think I was a very quiet kid. I was a very reserved kid. I would hold back a lot of who I am. And it's because, like, I've always been very cautious of not only my energy, but how I am perceived, right? And it's starting in a very, like, growing up in a big family. It's 7 of us. So it was like 5 kids and then, like, mom and dad. And
I've always been 7 too. I'm one of 5.
Yo, that's
mom
dope.
and dad. I've always been 7 in like 1 or 2 bedrooms, like just.
And it's hard to hide in a big family like that, right? So like it's very important as to like how I walk through the rooms, really reserved, really like not wanting people to question me, be it my family, be it a stranger. You know what I mean? And it wasn't until...
Know your place, regardless.
Exactly, right? Just like, I don't want to be questioned, so this is how I'm going to be. You know what I mean? Like, I know where I stand with everyone. And it was, like, real easy to do that. So I was really quiet, you know what I mean? And just growing up like that, it was fine. Like, no one was harmful to me. My parents were really great. My siblings were fine. They were great. And I wouldn't change it. It really depended on me and how I perceive things and how I move through the world. Even still, you know what I mean? I think when the corners are too close, when I'm too exposed around people, like I tend to shut down.
Yeah.
Even still. You know what I mean?
It's too much. So, you're oversensitive.
Unless I want to be seen. So it's different, you know what I mean? It's different for me being on stage, right? Because I want to be seen. If I'm off of stage and people are staring at me, I get really defensive of my energy. I'm like, why are you staring at me? Why are you looking at me? You know? Like if you want to talk and break it down and have a conversation, let's do that. But you don't have to like look at me and like judge me. There's no wall here. You don't have to be that person looking from the outside in. Come in.
Do you think as like a poet, you're naturally more sensitive to that? Like, you're speaking and you're feeling what people give you back from it, but maybe sometimes you're not speaking and you can still feel what people are giving you back from even that, the lack thereof, or they're not enough, or there's too much, or maybe what you said was too much. Like, how do you decipher that as a poet?
I don't know.
And move forward.
I don't know unless they fucking say the words.
Okay.
You know, like I can't.
So it doesn't necessarily. So other people's perceptions in your case don't necessarily drive you.
I don't know what other people's perceptions are unless
more
they say
or less or be par. You just kind of do you, and that follows. A lot of poet and writers, I guess, where I'm getting like they are led in a sense with the content they put out and what people expect, and these writers can really feed into that in regards to feedback in general. You know, they're trying to give to that, so they get back, yada yada yada. Do you get what I'm saying now?
I feel you.
But realistically, all of that considering, you know, you personally, do you feel like that drives you more? It's not necessarily something that pushes you to do anything.
No.
You just do you, and and whatever encompasses around that is what should happen.
Absolutely.
Outside of necessarily you worrying about the influence essentially as a whole.
However, like, yeah, absolutely. Like, no, motherfuckers don't influence me in any type of way.
Right.
If you don't
it's either one or the other. Like,
yeah. If you don't fuck with my shit, you don't fuck with my shit. But I will say this. I have mentors. I have people whose opinion I do value very much, and I hold it higher than any other. Right? And so when they say, Xach, that shit was whack, it holds a heavier weight.
ooh,
You know? And so now I got to reevaluate what I'm doing. And, like, I'm really starting to even, like...
And real mentors do that, right? Like, if it's your real mentor, they're going to tell you that's whack.
True. But now I'm even starting to, like, hold that a little bit farther away from me. Because it's like, okay, where is that coming from for you? Is that coming from a point of craft? Or is it coming from a point of subjection? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so now, like,
You gotta decipher.
I'm really trying to be in this energy where Xach is doing Xach, and like, fuck if you don't like it, you know. But it is a balance between like, yo, are you getting better? Are you improving in your craft? Are you really honing in on your shit? And if you don't mind, I wanted to go back to what you were saying, Devlin, about like dabbling in all of these different things, right?
It's really important.
Yeah. After like doing that, after dabbling in all of these different things, right? I've created this this idea or construct that I follow, right? It's I boil it down to the 3 C's. My visual art teacher, he was a drawing teacher. He taught me there's this thing called the 4 C's. And those 4 C's, let me see if I remember. They're concept, composition, craftsmanship, and contrast. Those are the 4 C's, right? And those apply especially to visual art. I can apply this concept of 3 C's to any facet of art, right? And those 3 C's are 3 of the 4 C's, right? So those 3 C's that you can apply to any facet of art is concept, composition, and craftsmanship, right? So concept, let's break it down real quick if y'all don't mind, right? So we can take concept and say, let's look at a poem. What is the concept behind this poem? How do we enter this poem? What is this poem talking about, right? We can take the concept of a podcast, right? What are we doing? You know what I mean? We're bringing together artists. That is literally the fucking concept of it, right?
Yeah.
So
essentially.
Yeah, it's very simple as to what a concept is. Like, it's not a very complicated thing to diagnose what is the concept.
Where
right?
do we get complicated?
Exactly, right? And so then you have composition, right? How do we navigate these things? How are we navigating this podcast, right? How do we navigate through the processes of a poem? Literally, what did I write in the sequential order of how I went about it, right? Like a movie, right? You can look at a movie and say this movie has a particular composition, right? Yeah. It had a fucking conflict. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then the climax and then the resolution. You know, like all of these different things, right? That is essentially the concept. And then the third one is the craftsmanship. And this is arguably the most important to me, right? Are we building this thing in a skilled way? Right?
Honing in on it, right? You said that earlier.
Are we honing in on the craft?
You're taking time in the steps.
Are we taking time to develop the parts of this thing that requires detail orientation, you know? And this is what essentially makes
I think essentially good. That's the one thing where most artists can be like, you know what, if I actually think about it, I'm not to the fullest potential.
Absolutely.
And it's like you could be heavier on that end than the thought process. Like, you know what, cool, think about it. Everybody thinks about all sorts of shit. The execution and the follow through, like, that's where it's really speaking volumes.
Yeah.
So what is it about the idea of contrast that you think it is the one of the 4 C's that you don't apply to all types of art? Or what is your meaning of contrast that you think that it doesn't apply to everything?
Yeah, that's
because when I hear contrast, I think that is definitely applicable to everything. Simply because
everything, yeah, absolutely.
To me, if you use contrast to evaluate any type of art, that doesn't necessarily mean contrast to mediums, contrast and what the meaning is. Contrast can also mean what is the contrast of this piece to the normality of culture that makes it so original.
Yeah.
What is that
how
to
are
you?
you standing out? Yeah.
That is such a fucking good question. I love. Let me address it. Right, like that's so fucking great. Thank you for asking that. One of the things that took me, because I took really long, hard looks at this and figured out how can I incorporate this, and because I teach as well, right? How can I incorporate these different things in elements that I teach, right? Particularly with poetry and performance, right? I think you can put contrast in any facet of art. What came down to me, whether it's necessary or not, is like what makes a masterpiece. Like this was the idea behind the 4 C's. Like if you look at any visual masterpiece, if you look at any visual art that is considered a masterpiece, it will have contrast, concept, composition, and craftsmanship. All of those things will exist in high quantities in the piece, right? When I look at movies that are critically acclaimed, when I look at poems that are award-winning, when I look at literature that's award-winning, when I look at these different facets of art, not all of them have contrast. Some of them fall flat in the sense of like, this is very much the same throughout, and it drives home a very strong point, but it's like baseline. There is not much contrast, whether it be in the culture, whether it be in the visuals,
like
right?
a noticeable variation
Absolutely.
that you can compare it to. Like essentially, that's what contrast is like relation.
Yeah.
So like it gives the point, but it doesn't necessarily give the explanation as to why it may be negated.
Or maybe even vice versa.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think that it can absolutely be there. I don't think it's necessary for everything to be a masterpiece.
All right.
But like, I think it absolutely adds. It absolutely
I think
adds.
it's necessary to have some contrast if it's considered a masterpiece.
I often, it's really funny. I often have contrast in a lot of the poems that I do, where I started really light, funny, jovial.
You're not going to argue that
and it's also
every single one of your poems isn't a masterpiece, though, right? So don't come up on here with that shit. I can't with you. No, sir.
That's not what I'm saying.
Me either.
Well, the coolest thing about
the
coolest thing I think about masterpiece, though, like my definition of masterpiece is something that shows true mastery.
I was gonna say, essentially, you have mastered.
In mastery in the sense of to where like you didn't try to make it, and like, and my thing is I mean, like you try
to make what, the art or the definition of your masterpiece.
The best masterpieces weren't made with the intention of it being a masterpiece.
Ever.
The best masterpieces were simply made with emotion.
Yeah, well, and a lot of them are accidents. I mean, like the coolest things, because I think my favorite pieces,
I didn't think
or the pieces that are like the most, that I've made, that I've seen, I wasn't even really trying. I kind of just threw it out there.
Yeah.
But that's when you're channeling that raw emotion, because if you think about it too much and like you jump into it, you can really cloud your brain because you're overdoing it. And that's why, honestly, with a lot of my art, I kind of freestyle things. I don't really ever have a plan. Yeah. Like anything I draw, like I'll have a general idea, but I
think that's the cool thing about art, that it works both ways. Like scientifically, right? Like I think when you really break it down and you look at the things that are considered masterpiece, or things that are considered critically acclaimed, that they have these 4 C's, right? Yeah. Or at least 3 C's. But like, also, when you're creating it, right? Are you thinking about that shit? Probably fucking not.
Like, it's crazy how those, like, I don't even think about the 4 C's till you put it out there like that. But like, realistically,
use channel
I could find that in those 4 C's inside of anything that I have the same perception of.
Yeah.
And honestly, now I'm not going to stop thinking about it.
It's incredible.
I'll be applying this to everything, and I'll be like, bitch, you ain't got the 4 C's.
But I mean, honestly,
never mind. Ixnay on your art day. That's right. And the nicest of ways.
But I mean, honestly, that just kind of makes you think about it even more. That beautiful thing about art is that art is defined and moved by emotion.
Yeah.
You see any type of art, but the thing is that the meaning of every type of art, every piece of art, it's different to every single person who sees it.
Yeah.
Because every single person has their own perception of the meaning of that piece that is completely different than what the master, the artist, the poet, the musician may have had.
Yeah,
when
so translation, like
it's all about
the
translation.
initial product, and then like,
what does it mean to you?
Yeah, but like initially, like it's gonna be something different for everybody. And consumers wise, I will never be an artist. So like even if I write, until I do like a book or something substantial that I can give that has like a significant feedback that I can, calibrate and measure, yada, yada, yada. It's really difficult for me to kind of judge whatever that perception is. When you have a physical piece of art, I know you guys both do a lot of physical art. You do art, you paint, but also now you're doing photography and stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like that's it's a medium that's easier to, again, calibrate. Like I can see what's giving to that and what's not giving to that. And with spoken word, it's so all over.
It's interesting, yeah.
The translation isn't like, even feedback you get that feels so super positive. Like a couple of days ago, someone asked me to hear something I read, and I was like, go look at the Right About Now page. I'm on one of these open mic nights. And I actually hadn't looked at it, but I told someone else to go look at it. And I went and looked at it, and of course, I'm never happy with anything I do, but it was just a whole nother level of like being able to measure it and, how I want to put it out, how I perceive it, how other people perceive it. And it created a whole nother initial dialogue to what makes it approachable, compelling, and what makes you actually want to share it more as art, as spoken word, in a confident forum, honestly, because you feel confident now, but I can't imagine you always feel like you do now.
It's fucking funny, yo. Whenever I started getting into spoken word, I think I was the most confident. Like
I feel the same way. Oh my God. And now I'm like, oh wow, maybe I won't ever write again.
Right?
Maybe
when I hear people read now, I'm like, I can't do it. And in the beginning, it was full force. It was like, I did this one great thing and I'm fucking about it. Yeah. And then I was like, never mind.
Maybe that's just because the more that you do it, the more you realize that you can hone your own skills as soon as you pay attention to them.
But is honing as approachable as it is terrifying?
Well, but that's part of it.
Yeah.
How do you ever grow if you're not uncomfortable? How do you ever push your own boundaries and then prosper from past those unless you break those walls down that you put yourself into in the first place? You have to be uncomfortable to do things you've never done. Huh?
Do you have an artist suggestion for that? Devlin always likes to ask, like, what would you say to people in consideration of that? So, I mean,
which I will
it's
ask
already
eventually.
coming up with this conversation with Steph. I just figured might as well.
If you are uncomfortable, then you are growing. Either you're uncomfortable and you're realizing that you want to grow and be better, or you're uncomfortable and you're learning from a situation how to never be in that situation again. Either way, you will
That's your podcast, babe.
Yeah.
be better.
I know.
Is if you don't mind, like, it's really interesting, right? Like, whenever I started, I was like the most confident. Me and some of my friends made up a term for this confidence that I had. It's called like whenever I started spoken word, I weighed 220, right? Which is the most I've ever weighed in my life, and I wasn't like that big, but like we made up a term. It's called Fat Xach, right? I was Fat Xach, and so like on the mic, I was Fat Xaching it, yo. Like the confidence I had was through the fucking roof, yo. Like I would go in on every poem, whether or not this shit was whack or not. I was going in, and the shit was always whack. I was a terrible writer.
But when you go in and it's whack, how much better does it feel, even if you have, then in comparison to something substantial, but you don't have that same
not
confidence?
only how much better does it feel, but how much better does it resonate with these people in the audience. So you'd rather
be all in and whack than...
It's a balance. I wouldn't say you want to be all in and whack. You want to work on your writing.
My point is,
but
like,
you
do it as opposed to not doing it?
You also be confident in the shit that you write. Like, if you write something, you know that you wrote it for a reason. You know that you care about that shit. And if you don't like it, you fix it.
I think...
Do you think it's important to even still, as a spoken word artist, say maybe those, like... How do you get through the pieces that you know aren't what you're referring to? Like, we all have it. Pardon me. Like...
You know that the message resonates.
I got a million pieces that could be better. But sometimes I need to say it first. I need to get it out.
I still do.
And it's not where I want it to be. So what do I do with that?
I still do blunt poems. I don't think blunt poems are my best written piece. I think if I rewrote that poem, it will be 1,000,000 times better, right?
Everybody loves that fucking
it's
poem.
like, you realize that some of the most blatant and honestly truthful poetry comes from the shit that ends up like bouncing around in your head, and it never goes away until you actually say it out loud. But as soon as you do, you realize you've created something.
Right, so that's
and
my question.
Whenever you do it,
anyways?
You find a way to better it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But I mean, maybe that's just why you're just, you have to say it. Because what is a thought if it's not valid? What is an emotion if it's not created?
Very true. Very true. I think, and there's a balance between that. I think there's a balance between your emotion, your thoughts being valid, and how you saying it being well written, right? Like,
right.
At the end of the day, we want to talk about the craft and how we write it, right? Now, does that, if it's a shitty written line, does that invalidate the sentiment? No, no, never, right?
So, do you recommend doing it regardless?
If you haven't found a better way to write it, absolutely.
All right.
I haven't found a better way to write
Or are you saying, shut up till you hone in?
I haven't found a better way to write.
Or do you think there's a middle
poem.
ground? Like, you need to say it and figure it the fuck out and then come back when it's good.
So I haven't found a better way to write the blunt poem, so I still do it in
that,
a way that it's done.
You don't even realize that people love that poem.
Yeah, people love that poem because they relate with the message.
So is that another point of yours, though? Like, people fucking love it, but you're still not even there with it in your mind. So it means keep working at it.
Maybe
even if it's that one poem.
I'm kind of done with working that poem.
I was gonna say, are you gonna do it again?
I'm done with working the poem, working it into better writing. The poem is the poem. And I'm gonna do that poem because I think it's important to be done, right? I think the sentiment's there. Maybe the writing isn't where I am as a writer right now. I've surpassed that.
How long ago did you write that?
Maybe that's one of the first poems I've written. Maybe 2.5 years ago.
That's crazy.
You know what I mean?
You've only been doing poetry that long?
About 3 years tops.
Oh
I've been doing spoken word poetry, yo. So yeah, that was one of the first ones, man.
But look at where you are now.
He absolutely
is proof.
Do it.
Well, for all the artists out there too, like it doesn't take long to develop something you've wanted to do. Like, you just got to practice.
Yeah, and I think essentially once you do it, and you get that feeling.
Well, and mostly because, and the biggest thing I hear nowadays when people try to do stuff is, I don't have time, this and that. I'm like, well, the average person spends about 2.5 to 3 hours on their phone every day.
Do that, yeah. So translate that.
So if you play guitar 3 hours a day, every day,
that's 21 hours in a week.
Like, how good would
part-time job?
Would you? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Straight up. So, well, and also, I use the guitar example because of my grandfather. I might have told you.
We had talked about this.
Yeah,
before.
So my grandfather.
He didn't learn until way later in life, right?
Yeah, he started playing guitar when he was like 70, and then when he died, he was like 82. But
I heard this on one of the. Yeah.
Well,
you're listening.
Yeah,
I am. Yeah, I'm listen up.
And it's super awesome because it's never too late to just do something. But even more so to go back on, full circle, just to trying different things and jumping in there. And I guess it can also lead to the question she was asking about that I asked everybody, which you probably heard. Because the main reason I made this podcast is just because I've gotten discouraged on my art before and just what I'm doing. I didn't know I'd be trying to do this for a living, this is what I want to do. And because it was just a hobby, I just drew in class. Like, I didn't think this was going to be a thing. Like, people would be like, hey, bro, draw on my J's, or draw on my hat. And I'm like, yeah, sure.
So
whatever.
even with your dad, he was an artist when you were younger, or was that also later in his life?
No, he's been an artist since he was a kid.
I've never really necessarily asked, even though
if
we all hang out.
If anybody wants to know that story, it's on episode 10. I got the whole story about my shit.
Plug.
But what I wanted to ask though was just for all the listeners out there that maybe they want to get into poetry, or maybe they want to paint, or maybe they want to start something, but maybe they're discouraged, maybe their friends say they suck, because we all got friends that cap on us, what could you say from your own experience, that might give them a little push to say fuck it, I'm gonna do what I want to do.
Anyways,
that's a hard question to answer, because I think a lot of people have heard a lot of the answers that could be given.
Exactly.
And it's really hard to overcome that initial hump. I've been listening to a lot of Gary V, and Gary V's dope as fuck, man.
Shout out Gary V.
Shout out Gary V,
do
B.
all the hashtag Gary V, everything for this episode.
Yo, I can only amplify Gary V's voice and say that this thing that's holding you back is your insecurities, your fucking insecurities, yo. Get over that shit. It doesn't matter what your friends think. It doesn't matter what your parents think.
Yeah.
If you feel like you need to be doing that shit, if you feel like you need to be creating, create and do it. That's like Nike, bruh. Just do it. Just do it. Like,
Do you know where that quote came from?
please tell me. I don't.
Okay, so legit, I cannot remember the name of the man, but there was a serial killer who was on death row, and he was getting the electric chair. And whenever they were setting him up and covering his face and plugging him in, his last words were "just do it." And the person who was in the crowd, witnessing the execution, was one of Nike's earliest marketing people.
I'm like a marketing
and that's where the
person
slogan came
at the
from.
death row.
A serial killer.
That's where I'd get something.
So just do it, but do it safely.
Man, I wish I was that
Do it
person.
safely.
That's marketing at its
I love
finest.
that. Just do it. Just do it safely.
Like all of a sudden, I'm super hyped for some advertising, and it's midnight.
That's really
That's
good.
how it fucking works.
Nike's also a Greek word. It's like I don't know exactly. Don't quote me on this, but something in the realm of like greatness, like achievement.
Yeah.
Like that's what it's in that realm. Even though people may disagree with like how their shoes are made, they make some damn good shoes.
They do.
I love their
Shout
shoes. Hey, the skateboarding shoes, Nike SBs, that's my favorite kind of shoe. Even though I got shit tons of Vans.
Like my kids, I don't think they know shit about shoes really. They've only always worn Vans, but lately my youngest is like, I need some Nikes. So I got him some Nikes, like just some like running shoes.
But
Hop
And
on
he
that
thinks of the
bandwagon.
shit. He don't know nothing about Nike. He just likes to say Nike, and it just like blows my mind the way he has this perception. Like, I got Nikes. I'm faster. Like they're his Sonic shoes. That's what he calls them.
That's adorable.
Well, it's something about
Sonic
Nike
and
going
Knuckles.
back to just staying in multiple mediums, multiple realms. This is also something Nike has done as well.
Yes, they are
Because
like
they
infiltration at its finest.
like the thing is they hit every market they can.
Yes.
Like what's actually cool, they dabble in the different markets. They didn't do that at first, but
They do a lot of influencers too now. Like they're one of the highest influencer markets.
Well, I'm saying like Michael Jordan with his shoe, he really came through with that because like they hit all the different aspects, And then also you got like
I heard Michael Jackson came up with that slogan.
well then also
Does anybody know if that's true?
Was it who? What are you talking about?
Which slogan?
He came up with whatever the advertising was to sell the original Jordan, and he came up with the design for the original first like Jordan shoe. Apparently, Michael Jackson.
Oh, shout out Michael or R.I.P. Michael Jackson. Shout out and
Anyways,
R.I.P.
I'm just talking shit in the podcast. You can take that
but
out.
like Paul
But I'll
Rodriguez,
remember to
he
Google
really
it
started
later.
putting the voice on for Nike SB when they decided to go skateboarding. But the thing is like I even though everybody got their up and down with big corporations, I like how they just try to expand and make as much content for as many different people as possible. But if you take that model, you can apply that to your own artistic skill set, and then also whenever you take that artistic skill set for different experiences you want to have or different projects you want to create, you can follow that same formula. It's like just jump into make sure you learn about the field you're going in because you want to respect the field you're going into.
Yeah, and you want to grow as an artist in whatever field it is that you're doing. Like example, right? If you want to be a poet, right? Study poetry, read poems, listen to poets.
Go figure.
Even if it's cheesy.
Even if it's cheesy, because there seems to be,
There's a lot of cheese in it. You got to get over it.
What's one of the really best advice I've ever gotten from a poet? From shout out to Christopher Diaz. Christopher Diaz is like one of my mentors. This guy's done so much for me.
He's probably one of the most genuine humans I've ever met.
Absolutely.
Like, without a doubt, he, I don't know.
One of the things he told me was, he told me that you can learn from any poet, even the ones you don't like. You can learn what not to do.
And that's where contrast comes in.
Ooh.
4 C's.
Hey.
Everywhere.
Steph, you over here dropping mics and stuff. Okay. Okay.
Oh, that's super cool though. I mean, because you don't have good without bad. Like, you need both. Like, that's a. We were actually watching like this documentary where they're a bunch of rich people that kind of have like entitlements and different stresses go on this journey to South America for ayahuasca trip.
Yeah,
and it really helps them, like they get honed in with the earth and they're like, oh shit, like because people are too wrapped up in positive vibes only, which it is like that, but at the same time is like those negative vibes are always going to be there. There is no you
can't avoid it.
Utopia.
Yeah, I don't have an unrealistic perception of like existing.
Well, and that's the thing, but you should also respect the bad things as much as the good things, and that's a hard thing to say. It's a hard thing to do, but I mean that in the sense of like the knowledge and the experience is still there regardless.
Sure. Absolutely.
So
you don't have a balance or any sort of like come down, come up if you don't come out of it. Yeah.
Like the balance is like, you have to keep it on both sides. Like, if it gets too far one way, because I always know, like even with skateboarding, like if I go a long time without falling, I got a really good one coming. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because
that makes sense.
Because that's the thing. Like the better you get, the harder the falls are. Same thing with success too. Because like I was even listening to another shout out Business Outlaws, another podcast I listened to. I actually sent them some art. They're out in LA, and I sent them some stuff just for free because I really like their show.
Shout out Business Outlaws.
Yeah, and but one of the things they're saying is just going through. Man, what the fuck was I talking about? All the
I want to say let's go poet, but we're gonna have to come up with let's go.
The higher you climb, the bigger the fall.
Oh no, yes, what I'm saying. So like so with success, like a lot of people think that just because people are successful, they got it easy. Or you see someone with a bunch of money, you see something with something they did, they're like, oh man, you must be lucky, you got it made, this and that. Like this, and it's like, well, it's like, they're saying like, I'm sorry I made it look easy, but I don't know, there's nothing about this that's easy.
Yeah.
The perception I feel like is rarely equal to
dude, more money, more problems is a real thing, and you can still like it makes some things easier. Mm-hmm. Like the success, it makes a lot of other things easier, but there's still a whole nother book of bad things. Like there's always that counterbalance, that the coin's always gonna have two sides. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's that's what's so cool.
Or more. All kinds of shit.
How like all of this stuff happens though, like. Mm-hmm. I hate to say it like this, but none of us really got any fucking money. But we're all a bunch of artists. We all like do different things and have different mediums and different outlets. And like this right here, what you're providing, Devlin, like what's happening at this table, what happened at open mic, we are surrounded, we're just involved in a world that like that's the perception. The more money, the more work put in, the more this, the more you get out of it. But in actuality, my only real passions and connections, all of that comes into fruition outside of any of my actual labor. Like the shit I do Monday through Friday is my job that pays my bills, has nothing to do with what I'm passionate about, how I connect, how I create. Like it is 100% obsolete some majority of the time. To that side of my life and that spectrum, and we are super fortunate to be in a community where we can say that, like, even if you don't have the means, we know the people. I can't run my own podcast. I'm super fucking fortunate to be able to help with your podcast and so on and so forth. Lots of people can't fucking pay to be in an art gallery, but we got art galleries that will throw you up. Lots of people don't want to travel because they're scared of going and doing an open mic poetry night. Who knows what comes of that, but we like support a scene that is 100% free admission, and people still come out. Our features still get paid. Our artists still, can fucking be supported. We can still show art in that same space. Like,
and it's a crowd of people with open minds.
It really is like, like the community around here generates all of that with the least amount monetary anything as possible. So that just kind of shows that it can be done with the passion and the effort and the support, you know, people who are super willing.
Absolutely.
It gives you a reason to do it without all of that bullshit.
And the arts community out here is really, really close and really connected, and it's very rich, and it's a very I usually call it an untapped vein out here because no one really knows about like the art scene out here, especially like a lot of my Houston friends, like artists, they didn't know it was like so rich down here, like as far as just how many artists, just in that artist loft building alone. You know?
The artist residency.
Like I used to joke about before I even started the podcast that this is season 1 right here in this building, with all these people because like everyone in there is so unique and so different, and but just the fact that because sometimes the small town vibe can be kind of weird, especially me. I mean I was born in a small town, but I grew up in Houston more. I've lived there more than I lived in my original town. Yeah. So I was used to the city a lot. And when I moved here, I moved to Austin after that. I moved here from Austin. So, moving into the small town vibe was kind of a weird adjustment, but just kind of seeing how everybody can come together though, and, just throw these little events like they do. And that was one of the biggest inspirations I had just to start this, is just like, I want to talk to everybody. I want to talk to all these artists. And
it's crazy, man. I was looking at this quote here. I pulled this shit up. This is important to me. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just read this first line, right? It says, money is a tool. It's the means, not the end. R.I.P. Nipsey. Yo, that's a quote from Nipsey Hussle, who has gems. So R.I.P. to that nigga. And I'm not even gonna be I'm the biggest Nipsey fan. I'm not. You know what I mean? Motherfucker just started posting all this shit. So, that's how I know that this motherfucker drops gems. But, that's so important, right? Money is not the end-all, be-all. Inspiration is the fucking goal, B. Yeah. We're trying to, really inspire people. At least that's why I do it. Y'all heard me at my feature. The main way you can support me is just to tell me how you felt. You know what I mean? Yeah. Tell me if this shit touched you. Tell me if this inspired you. If this uplifted you. That's the shit that keeps me going. Your inspiration inspires me to keep doing this shit. Absolutely. You know what I mean? And it's a fucking catalyst to keep all of this art going. Money, man, that shit, you know what I mean? It supports us. It supports the communities. It has its purpose. But at the end of the day, if no one had money, people would still make art.
People would still make art. So I'm really, in consideration of that, you're not from Houston. So what makes Houston home to you now?
It was a pivotal moment where I've spent half my life in New Orleans, half my life in Houston, right? In the surrounding areas, and that age was probably around 24, between 22 and 24, right? 24.
How old are you now? I'm sorry.
I'm 26.
Okay.
I'm 26 now, right? So it's at this point to where I've spent more of my life in Houston, and more of my my roots, the foundation has been New Orleans, right? But the development has been Houston. You know what I mean? I can never forsake my roots. I can never forsake the fucking foundation of the house that I was built upon. But the shit that developed off of that foundation, I can only credit to Houston, B. I can only credit to that to the city.
So equally called you're good at staying
Absolutely.
home.
This is my home, yo. And that's my home too. You know what
I mean? No, no discredit.
Yeah.
It's I think more or less I think it's really beautiful because there are so many people I know that come from out of state to Texas, and Texas is a whole nother experience for them. People call it their own country, their own this, their own that. Whether it's natural disasters or the economy, whatever brings them to it.
Texas was wild
usually
for me at first.
You come here and it's a lot, but you either don't leave at all, or when you do, you're definitely coming back. And so I really, especially when we have poets that come in or artists that come in from different areas. And I know, Devlin, you're not necessarily from Houston. Nope. What makes Houston home to you? I think it's an important question to figure out. You're doing you're doing this now with all these artists here in Texas, Houston, Galveston. That in itself shows how important of an influence it is. But how did that become important as a staple, in your artistry?
Oh well, mostly because I always had a tie to Houston, just artistically, just because of my dad. First of all, because he was out, he moved out here first, and then and then what really did it for me is like I had like my first like art show, at school at my school, and at my school when I came in. I went to Love Elementary, and it's like in the Heights area in Houston. It's a public school, but I was one of 2 white kids in my class, 2 or 3 white kids in my class, and we had and we had a class of like 40 kids,
Yeah.
So it was, but I had a really thick Oklahoma accent too, and I was, and I was like the chunky kid too, so I just had a lot of.
Wait, time the fuck out, nigga. What the fuck?
Yeah, bro.
So Devlin's always like, people don't know that I am part black, and I'm also, I was the chunky kid. Like we have these cultural conversations about where because he's been so many places.
Yeah.
Look,
and he's been all over, and people just
time the fuck out.
His spectrums.
Time the fuck out.
I feel for you.
Hang on, give me a second, Emily. Because people don't see you on the fucking podcast.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
we got a description.
We gotta describe Devlin for you niggas.
All right, I got this one.
You got this one. Let's hear it. Describe this nigga. Shit.
All right, so he's got this voice,
Hello.
right? Start by that.
Yeah.
And then he's tall, and he's got this. I don't know, just this personality that shines through more than anything.
I'm
So
long,
what does he look
long,
like
tan,
in
and handsome.
comparison to what he sounds like? That's
Just talking about physical features. People know what I sound like at this point.
tall.
All right,
Mix and hands.
he's got this. Well, I mean, obviously, baby, I'm gonna make you sound good, but slight muscular build, tall.
Not at all.
What do we do?
She's gassing me up right now. I'm a skinny man.
Handsome as hell.
All of a sudden, I thought like we were doing some like.
Look, I want to be completely
long
fucking
walks
honest.
on the
Yeah.
Galveston Beach.
Devlin is a tall, lanky ass person.
That's my
All
babe.
right, and he looks great.
I got this. You're
Devlin
fine.
has a beautiful face.
Yes, he does.
And I'm sure he's great in bed. He has a great personality, god damn it. I don't fucking know about how he is in bed, but shit, probably, by his voice he can seduce any motherfucker. But look, I would have never guessed this nigga was fat. What?
Surprises. I'm like a pinata.
Out of all the things you're surprised by, that's it.
That's wild, yo. Like, I never would have guessed in my
What are
life.
your other surprises, Devlin?
Can y'all realize this?
What do other people not know?
What do people not know? Oh, actually, my left leg's longer than my right leg.
Is that that's not a dick joke?
No,
Okay,
it's not.
No. You know what? Y'all can get quiet like I'm the crazy one. Being like, that's not a dick joke, but I promise you people are listening and be like, is that a dick joke?
Yo, definitely. I want to say, though, it's inverse for me. Like, in middle school, I was, like, a super skinny kid.
Yeah.
I was, like, fucking skinny as shit. Like, and I remember very vividly, one of my cousins was like, Xach, you're so skinny, you're never going to be strong. So, like, after that, I worked out every fucking day for like 6 fucking years.
How you doing now?
I'm now getting fat.
Not swole.
So
We can't call you swole.
So what you're saying is you're eating good. That's what that means.
I am eating a lot better. I've always eaten. My metabolism is just fast as shit. I put on a lot of muscle mass, but now like it's catching up to me.
I'm trying to eat like right now.
Up to me, goddamn it.
It's not funny.
Yeah, well, it's I don't know, but going back on your question though.
Yeah, I was like, what are we talking about here?
I actually always used to draw in school, and that was one of the things that I could I kind of just resorted to because I didn't really have a lot of friends up front. I kept
because you were fat.
Because I was fat and I was white in this school.
I thought you weren't white.
No, I mean, even at the time. No,
everybody thinks you're
white
passing.
No,
which is really funny.
It's one of those
because
things.
Devlin is not all white.
Well, actually, hold on. Check this out. So this is actually a thing that I thought was cool that I didn't realize about my childhood until I grew up.
Okay.
So yes, my grandfather. So my mom's half. My
right,
mom's
right. Your mom, yeah.
Yeah, and then but my grandfather, I never saw him as like black growing up. That was just my grandpa.
Yeah, because you don't think about that shit.
So it was actually my cousin Beacon who actually shout out Beacon. But his but his dad's black, so he's half. But he was telling me, he was just like, bro, you're like mixed, right? And I was like, no, I'm not.
I didn't know.
Like, I didn't know, because, like, I didn't see it that way. Like, I didn't see it as racist. That was just my grandpa.
Isn't a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing, but I actually thought, I didn't piece that together until later.
Yeah. It's like, why do you need labels?
Yeah, why do you need to think about it?
Yeah, but the thing from that, though, was just, like, I never really noticed things like that. I was more so focused on just, like, my art and caring about my family and things like that. That's what I really cared about, so... But before Houston, like whenever I was going through that in school, I really just stuck to my drawing and just kind of kept to myself. I'm an only child as well.
Yeah.
So I spent a lot of time just observing things. I spent a lot of time with myself.
Yeah, and I know with your dad and like all the art shit that I know about that you're involved in, like that's enough.
Yeah,
like,
but
that's a lot.
Yeah, but from that, I've just like met a lot of people in the arts, and just like Zach, I dabble in a bunch of different mediums. And, you meet different people from different places, and they teach you things, and you teach them things that maybe you don't even know. Someone doesn't have to tell you taught them something to, like, people are watching, and people see what you do. Mm-hmm. And that's why, and there's a reason I wanted to make the podcast, because, like all of you artists, and, like, and for those that don't know, Stephanie's a fantastic artist. She does painting, she draws, she does baking, like, Emily, you badass poetry. You also cook as well.
I do some things. I do.
You've got some amazing recipes, girl.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're a great cook.
That's the thing, though, but like, because we all have artistic talents, and everything has an art to it, and that's why I wanted the word artison. Actually, Stephanie made the name for the podcast.
So I call this the artist.
But the word artisan specifically, you can apply to anything. So there's artisanship in anything.
Yeah.
So and that's the biggest point. If you just you should never stop learning. You should always stay uncomfortable, like she said, because you want to learn. I mean,
that was great. That's like one of the best things I've heard.
Because if you don't know,
watch me grow.
if you don't know and you're afraid of something, go conquer it, and you're not afraid of it anymore.
Right.
Then it's on to the next thing.
And then you laugh at it.
Yeah.
Can I backtrack real quick?
Yeah.
Because we sort of graze over this part that I think is really important, right?
Yeah.
We talked about how your grandpa's black, right? And we talked about how color might not be important, right? I think it's very important.
No, it's super important.
I think it's very important to distinguish this, and it's very important to own those things, right? Mm-hmm. Because not everybody has the ability to be a part of those things, and not everybody has the privilege to not be a part of those things in some lights too, I was having a conversation with a poet and a friend earlier about anger, because I have this poem, the acid poem, right, where I go through this trip talking about anger and how it fuels me and how it is some sort of protection as well, right, and even to go back and how we gotta own the good and the bad, the positivity and the negativity. I'm driving to the island today, right, and not feeling too good, feeling really negative vibes, you know what I mean? And kind of have to sit with that and fight through it and really pinpoint where is this coming from and move through that energy to come and figure out to get here and to be in a good state, right? And there's a lot of reasons as to why that energy existed. I'll tell you one of the factors of that energy is me. Every time I get on the road, there's nerves for me. There's nerves for me of being pulled over as a black person, right? And really having to fight with that and battle with that. That's not something that everyone has to deal with. That's not something that everyone has to go through, right?
That's not something anyone should have to deal with in the first place, though. That's why it's fucked up.
I feel you, and it's fucked up, but it's the reality.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Unfortunately.
And unfortunately, it is the reality, right? Mm-hmm. And that's something that we can't graze over. That's something that has to be addressed whenever the conversation of race comes up. And the fact that, we can idealize how it's supposed to be, but we also have to address what it is.
So it's it doesn't always apply to everyone, but the thing is that it applies more than it should, which is already a bigger problem than anything.
Wait, what was that?
It's not something that everyone has to address or deal with, but the fact that it is still a problem is a bigger problem.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel that.
You shouldn't have to be afraid. That's completely bogus.
Do you feel like
absolutely bogus?
Yeah.
I think for you, when you mentioned how it was kind of passed over, just the concept, like what we're talking about how that's actually part of his history as a human in general, and you were like, we shouldn't pass over this. Do you feel like you pass over that as a part of who you are because of how you were raised, or because you genuinely don't think about it?
Well, the thing is like, that's how it was as a kid, and that really brought it in perspective to me when my cousin brought that up. Mm-hmm. But later on, because I noticed, as I was like skateboarding and like doing all kinds of things, and I've had a couple run-ins with the cops. There have been multiple situations though when I'm like with my black friends and I don't get questioned. My friends do,
and it's really apparent.
And they don't come to me, and I'm like, hey, I'm over here, like I saw it, and then like, or especially if they didn't do anything, they're the ones getting messed with, and I'm just sitting over here. And I've called out cops for doing that. Like when we're skating, like we'll be skating place, we're all trespassing, but he's just like
focusing.
There's a guy I used to skate with, my friend Jamal. I used to skate with him in Houston at the downtown skate park, and we went around just like hitting some place we're trespassing, and we're both trespassing. Cop pulls us over, and I'm actually giving the cop attitude. I'm actually being a dick.
But you're not the one getting
and Jamal's
shit
being
for
cool,
it.
but he's getting all the shit. And I noticed this stuff growing up, and it's really fucked up, and it's a real thing that people don't, and it's honestly for a lot of people, especially some cops too. Some cops don't even realize they're doing that shit.
Yeah, because it's so ingrained into our society.
Exactly.
And I mean, and like people say, can black people be racist against black people? Well, absolutely. Yeah. You know what I mean? And like that's the sad part about it.
Yeah.
That's where it goes back to what you're saying, where it is bogus that we have to even deal with
I think where society gets confused about what racism exactly is because they try, and this is where the definition of racism is redundant. Because people try to say that racism is only a problem for certain races, when no, it's a problem for everyone, because we are a society. We are not like... We are individuals. I don't mean to say like we're not, but whenever you think about us as a collective whole in solving problems and addressing problems like this, it affects everyone, even the people who try to say that it doesn't touch them, because of the fact that it doesn't touch them.
Yeah.
You can't say that there's not a problem.
Is that sort of like the...
No, I don't necessarily think they're enablers, because to say that, you'd have to think that they were blatantly turning a blind eye to it. But when
they're so conditioned, they don't know.
Or not necessarily conditioned, but because there's people in like today's age who are trying to move forward, and then there's people in today's age who are trying to not change anything, but there's also a third group who are trying to address things so that we can move forward. Because how do you ever move forward unless you sweep the dirt that you've already made?
Exactly.
You have to sweep up your mess behind you if you ever expect to have a clean house.
Absolutely.
And society will never have a clean house unless everyone does the part to address the dirt that we've all had.
So let me ask you this. How would you address the people who are trying to move forward without sweeping up the dirt?
Here's the thing. If you want to say that there's not a problem, then that is turning a blind eye to it, because there's too much shit going on in today's news and today's society and today's culture. You have to validate the problems in order to have any type of address for any type of issue. You can't just ignore it because it doesn't affect you, because that goes back to being redundant.
Absolutely.
The fact that it still affects people, the fact that there's shit still happening, the fact that it's still a topic being discussed on a podcast proves that it's not done.
Absolutely.
If you... Here's the thing. I'm going to quote Morgan Freeman on this. If you want to stop racism, you have to stop talking about it.
No shit.
Because the only way to completely stop racism is to take it out of society, take it out of the mindset, take it out of the expectation that it's going to be there, and instead start treating people by their character and by how they treat other people, instead of basing it on what was in the past or what's previously happened, or even what you think might happen because of what you've been conditioned for. No matter what anyone says, everyone has a preset mindset of what they've been taught by people before them, and those people have the same thing of what they were taught. So you cannot ignore a problem and say that it's not there. Even if you don't want to talk about it, you can still address it. But the thing is, if you don't talk about it, even when you don't want to, then it's still a problem. If you're not desensitized to it, or if you are sensitized to it, then what is your perception of it? Because if you're not going to say anything, then what are you saying by your silence?
That's a t-shirt right there.
I feel like people definitely contribute to the whole racism idea just by talking about it, but if you just don't talk about it, then it also isn't gonna fucking...
That is the thing.
You can't fix it, okay?
Well, no.
Why don't we just
here's the thing.
There's no fixing to it.
There is fixing to it. But the thing is,
but it's not going to happen. I feel like it's unrealistic to say this is what we do to fix it. This is we all stop talking about it to fix it.
Here's the thing: is because it goes back to the thing where if you're going to say it's not a problem, you're only saying it's not a problem because it doesn't affect you, and that doesn't mean
it is a problem.
Yeah, exactly, and that doesn't mean
which means
that it's not a problem. That just means you're not thinking about the bigger picture of what society is as a whole. We have a very ugly past as a country. People don't like to admit that.
As a race. Like a human race.
I mean,
as a human race. It is almost ingrained in our brains to have hatred. And you want to know why? It's because it's a survival instinct to stick to what people look like you, to what people act like you, and to what you're used to.
I don't think you get through that by not talking about it.
Yeah, no, exactly. You have to talk about it. Even when it makes you uncomfortable.
But the whole, get rid of racism by stop talking about it is completely
contradicting
okay.
what's
happening here.
I'm sorry. Let me clarify by that.
Saying.
Okay.
No,
I can clarify.
It's not going to work like that.
I can clarify.
It hasn't been working like that. I can't speak factually for anything, but I can say that honestly, it hasn't been working like that.
Yeah.
People not talking about it doesn't.
No,
execute shit.
I guess what I mean is that by not talking about it, you can't
feel it.
No. Okay. So basically, when people try to say "Oh, I'm going to automatically assume that this is because of racism," when no, it's because of another valid reason. That's what I mean by not talking about it. If you want to stop racism, then stop assuming it's the first reason.
Okay.
But at the same time, I do realize there's situations where it is. In those situations,
I think it's super important though. There's a lot of situations though where it is the factor, but somebody doesn't want to say this is the factor. They want to act like it's the other factor.
And it's not even that.
That's not fucking cool either.
No, it's not.
But hang on, real quick. So I feel like a lot of the time, and I'm gonna say this, and we can move on to the next thing, right? But I want to say this real quick, right? I feel like a lot of the times it is other factors, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when we interrogate these other factors further as into why these things
it's just
bother,
don't jump to conclusions about it being the reason why.
Why these things bother certain people, it comes to cultural differences. And why those cultural differences exist? Probably because of fucking race.
That's
probably because we come from different parts of the world.
Okay.
And it does get down to a boiling point to where it does come down to where are you from and what do you identify with. And it's okay to be different. But it's also more important to accept these differences. And that doesn't come without not talking about it.
Exactly.
Right?
Well, yeah.
So, and these differences, and what Devin was saying, there's a facet for everything. And there should be a facet for different cultures and these things to exist simultaneously and it not be demonized or belittled, right? Example, real quick, right? Kylie Jenner can wear long nails, can make her lips look fuller, can do these different things that black women have been doing for fucking decades.
On their
own.
And
it's only fucking cool now that she's doing it and people like her are doing it, where black women have been demonized for this for fucking decades, And so why didn't that facet exist for these black women before and be okay for it to be? You know what I mean? Whereas before, they were demonized and called ratchet and called trifling and for doing the shit that Kylie Jenner is doing right now, right?
It's all sensationalized, yeah.
And you would say initially that has nothing to do with race. That has to do with the aesthetic, right? But why is that aesthetic pleasing on this particular person now, right? Is it the culture change or is it because of who's wearing it?
Similar thing with the Beach Boys when they stole a bunch of music from blues and soul.
And Elvis. We could talk about all sorts of white dudes that stole music
start
from
on
like we could do that all day.
Fucking I mean doing all the things. Dude,
Elvis, Rolling Stone, I mean.
Yeah, dude, they took all kinds of shit because when it was done like that, it was seen as like, oh, this is obscene music, obscene concerts.
Right, they're
up there acting like fools. They're terrible. And then you got Elvis over here in some shiny pants doing the same shit.
Yeah.
Just straight bopping the same shit, and then everybody lose their mind.
Muddy Waters.
All that stuff. It's the same thing. But, you know, at the same time, though, coming back to what we originally talked about in the beginning with how everything nowadays, even though those were terrible parts, you know, with, like, just the stealing and, like, and plus the way it done, especially in the time it was done, that was a terrible time in our country when that stuff was going on. Because, like, that, it was just blatantly stolen because the people like Elvis and them knew that nobody was going to say shit.
Yeah.
He knew he could just steal this shit and get away with it. Because they're going to take his word over their word. Like, just, that's just where we were as a country at that point, you know, like, unfortunately. But nowadays, I like the rise in how everything is in style and everyone's got things going on. And I think just by default, people don't even realize that everybody's inspiring each other.
True.
And it's not just direct stealing anymore at this point, just because now with things like the internet and things we got now, we are all just mixed.
I agree.
And that's the way I think it should be, man. Like,
there's levity to this shit, bro. There's absolutely levity.
And everybody should learn a little bit about all the cultures, mix the races, like everything. Like, just everyone should be intertwined, you know, because we're all here, we're all one, you know. At the end of the day, I mean, like we're all connected. Like, whether you like it or not, even the person you hate the most, you're still connected to them. You know what I mean? Like, it's never going to change. You know, so, and that's something everybody needs to get to. And I think it's at a very small, you know, kind of primordial level right now. But you can actually start to see in our culture people coming together as a whole, and it's very nice. Yeah. And even in its smallest form right now, it's still nice. It's nice every day. You know, it's never going to be perfect, and it's never going to be huge. And humans are humans, and like we were saying earlier, you cannot have good without bad. Bad is not going anywhere. But the best thing to do is just learn how to deal with it in a responsible way. Yeah, it's like if you really want to put positive vibes into the world, then you have to accept the negativity. Because if you're going to say that you don't like the negativity because you're oh so positive, what makes you different from that negative? Be the change you want to see in the world. Yeah. I love that line. Yeah. Like, if you want to see a better world, be that better world. And that's the best you can do. Yeah. Yeah. All right, y'all. Well, you know what, Xach? I appreciate you coming on, man. We had some real good topics, man.
Absolutely, bro. This was fun.
It was fun, man.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, Devlin.
Absolutely, bro. Anytime, anytime, anywhere, man. We gotta get your group on here, man. You guys still teaming up, doing some work?
So the team forms right about now. We compete in the National Poetry Slam, which typically happens every year. It didn't happen this year. Okay. The organization is going through some shifts, and so it's not happening right now. But hopefully we'll be back next year with it. The team forms every year. It's a competition base to get on that team, so the team's liable to change every year. I was on for the past 2 years, and it's changed slightly for the past 2 years. But it's been fun to be a part of it. If I can get this group together, we can come on, spit some group pieces for y'all, do some fun shit, man. It'll be dope.
Absolutely.
So I'll let you know. I'll keep in touch with that one.
Absolutely. And where can everybody find you, man, if they want to check out some of your stuff online or even see where you might even be performing soon?
So every Wednesday, come to Avant Garden in Houston. That's 411 Taft. 411 Westheimer Road. In Houston, bro. Houston, Texas. So come there if you want to see poetry. If you want to see that happen, come to Coast of Soul at the Proletariat. First and third Tuesday of every month in Galveston. Or if that's too much for you, just follow me on Instagram. Xach Blunt at everything. That's XACH. BLUNT. Follow me. I'll keep you posted on my shows. I'll keep you posted on my book release. I got a book coming out pretty soon, so keep an eye out for that. Follow me on that, and it'll be fun, yo. It'll be fun.
Absolutely. All right, what you got any shout outs? You want to shout anybody out before we wrap it up here?
Shout out Amir Safi. He should be here next time on the next open mic, next Coastal open mic. Shout out Amir Safi. Shout out Tarina Harris. They both are going to be up here. They're both amazing poets. Amir is one of the reasons I do this shit. He's the founder of Right About Now. You get to chop it up with him. Boy's great. Shout out to Christopher Diaz. Shout out to my mama for having me, because she fire. I'm going to leave it at that, though.
All right.
Shout-outs of the shout-outs.
Shout-outs of the shout-outs. All right, well, Xach, Emily, Stephanie, I appreciate y'all always coming on. It's fun. We're going to link up and do this again sometime soon. All right, you guys, Artists in Depth Podcast, be sure to like, subscribe, follow, put on the notifications. Give us some constructive criticism, like I always say. We love that. Let us know if you love it. Let us know if you hate it. Please let me know if you hate it, because I'm going to make some more of it. All right, y'all. Be sure to do all that and hit us up in the social media. We are out.
You've been listening to the Artists in Depth Podcast, motivating creative minds through artistic exploration. If you like what you're hearing, please be sure to give us a rating or a positive review. And if you'd like to get in touch with us, you can email us at vonpatrickarts@gmail.com. That is VONPATRICK@gmail.com. Thank you very much, and we look forward to talking to you.